Welcome back to the CTV News. The Caribbean Youth Empowerment Project has launched its second phase of operation in St. Lucia. Phase 1 saw the training of 215 young persons in areas of life skills, information technology, remedial education, along with job placement opportunities. USAID is the major donor of the regional initiative, along with sponsorship from the government agencies, NGOs, and businesses. Here's Jessie Leons with this report.
The second phase of the Caribbean Youth Empowerment Program was launched on Friday in a grand ceremony of delegates from abroad and local stakeholders, including the National Skills and Development Center, Belfund, RISE, and the government. Phase 1 of the project was deemed a success by the stakeholders.
In Phase 1, the focus was on technical vocational training. And as Ms. Nsin indicated, we targeted vulnerable and a category called highly vulnerable youth. But it was in reviewing that implementation and looking not just at the successes, but at the lessons learned, and also taking into consideration the current youth development initiatives that are being implemented island-wide, we, along with the support of the International Youth Foundation, looked at what still needed a holistic developmental approach.
To date, the Caribbean Youth Empowerment Program in St. Lucia has trained 215 youth in life and employability skills, employed 39% of its graduates, helped 5% to return to school, and has strengthened the capacity of partner organizations to deliver quality training and job placement services. The success of the project has prompted an additional US $2.5 million grant from USAID in August of 2011.
What we're also recognizing here today is really a complete partnership, and it's a full partnership. And it's more than just a partnership between two governments, it's a partnership really between two peoples. And we're also seeing in St. Lucia is the involvement of the private sector, involvement of civil society, of government, and a recognition that we can't solve the problems of crime and violence unless we engage the entire society. This is also a recognition of the importance of getting at the root causes of crime. Law enforcement is important and essential, but it's insufficient. What we need to do is work with our youth, give our youth opportunities, and lead them in a more positive direction. And we know that programs like these can succeed, and we're seeing it in my country, in major cities like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Boston, and others. We're seeing it in Latin American countries, major cities, like Bogota and Rio de Janeiro and Monterrey, and we're seeing it now in the Caribbean.
CYEP plans to double its outreach to benefit an additional 1,100 persons for Phase 2 in its target countries in the Caribbean after having assessed the first phase. Of the individuals who received the training during incarceration, it is admitted that although it has been difficult, those already employed are faring well in the workforce.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge because we're not where we envision we wish to be yet. But as we said, 6 of the 17 of the most highly vulnerable trainees that were successful in the program have held jobs, and 5 others we are hoping that they will have jobs when their sentences are ended. It's a one-on-one continuous dialogue and interaction with employers, and I think that's why we've been successful. And I mean that. We visit the workplaces, we observe the trainees on the job, we dialogue with the employers as to what immediate problems they may be having. Some are having none.
When asked on the importance of the employer buying into the concept of hiring an individual with a criminal record, Dr. Bird admitted that it was a critical hinge in the progress of the project. However, it has been managed, especially with an outstanding example in Reno Kajada's CIE Construction Company. Mark Fairstein of USAID said that providing employment in that regard is successful only when all stakeholders in the society are involved.
What we've been seeing throughout Latin America and throughout the Caribbean is increasing engagement on the part of the private sector in these sorts of issues. And they're doing it not necessarily out of charity. They're doing it because it's in their own interest. when they understand that when there's crime and violence, that reduces economic growth. They understand that when you have crime and violence, that reduces tourism. And who does that hurt? That hurts the private sector, that hurts businesses. So it's in their interest to be able to reduce crime, to engage youth. And we're encouraged by the role that we're seeing the private sector play here and in many other countries. And it really won't work. Development can't work overall without a very, very strong role for the private sector. Ultimately, it's the private sector that creates jobs. It's the private sector that promotes development, supported by government, supported by civil society.
Prime Minister Dr. Anthony says that the CYEP project works in perfect harmony with his administration's human resource development initiatives.
It actually started in my days in opposition, and the occasional dialogue with Dr. King. I kept on explaining to him my concern that we were not reaching the youths we were seeing lambing at the sides of our roads, in the shanties, that no one was communicating to them, and they did not seem to be responding to the traditional programs. And I suggested to him that we needed to construct a program that somehow could reach them, and that government was not the best agency to do so because of the distrust, the cynicism of politicians and of government. And then he drew my attention to this program and said, well, this program had been in existence, that there was a first phase. Why don't we redefine the program that you become a partner, meaning the government of St. Lucia, but you establish specific goals for your involvement. The government's own position fitted in perfectly with the objectives. And we didn't want to cover ground that was already covered.
The Caribbean Youth Empowerment Program was launched in 2008 by the International Youth Foundation and the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, to improve the job prospects of underserved youth in Antigua, Barbuda, Grenada, Jamaica, and St. Lucia. For the CTV News, I am Jessie Leonce.